Welcome back. You're still on the Healthy Morning, and it's time for In Focus. Today is going to be another exciting time with a very special guest in the studio. What are we looking at this morning? We're actually looking at the opportunities and possible dangers of mining in the Atiwa forest. Wow. If you hear mining and forest, it tells you that as a package on its own. But to help me do justice to this topic this morning is a very, very special guest. Dr. Peter Amponsah-Mensah is my guest.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Right. Dr. Amponsah-Mensah is actually the director of Pamicor Limited. What do you do? I mean, tell me before I even go into the other one. You're the president, though, so not the president of Ghana.
Yeah.
So tell me, Pamicor, what do you do?
Pamicor Limited basically is a mining services company. Okay. We are involved in drilling and mining consulting services. Okay. And we try to get all the skills available in the mining space. One of the things we also do, personally, is go out there and make sure I communicate mining effectively to people to understand what mining really is about. Mining is a friendly occupation, and I think people must start accepting that. If we don't do that, people will think that mining is always negative, and you find people talking about the negativity about mining all over the time, always. Okay. And environmentally, people think mining is the worst industry, but it isn't. So Pamicor, basically, we are in to make sure we promote mining.
If my history will serve me right, I quite remember when I started playing hockey, and everybody was saying hockey is a dangerous sport, but you get onto it and realize it's one of the most friendliest because it's meant for gentlemen. So it comes back to what you just said. And is it because we hear of pits collapsing because people go and do illegal mining, and so they don't have all the engineering and technical handlers to probably do the right thing for them, so they get into it, an old pit, they want to go and make some money. Maybe that has actually given that misconception that mining is a dangerous area. Truly,
I mean, if you look at history, mining didn't have all this technical know-how at the time, and there were very shallow pits that we were using, and really we didn't care much in the 18th century about health and safety. So just people went in, they died and came out, and that's the end. But now it's changed. Wow. I mean, the society demands that we do things properly, sustainably. And the word sustainability means that you can do it well so that the future people can also have access to what's the mineral that you've left behind. So it's sustainability that we're talking about now in terms of mining. So mining has come a long way, has really developed, and now I think it's the safest profession.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, it's arguable though, but you have the microphone today, and so...
Today I'm the president.
You're the president.
And it's the safest.
And you're the president of the West African Mining, what do you call it? It's actually the Mining and Institute of Mining and Petroleum as well.
Yeah, I'm a fellow there as well.
Oh, okay.
And the West African Institute of Mining and Metallurgical and Petroleum basically seeks to bring to bear the professionalism in the industry. So that we can basically accredit people here in Ghana, not always going out to the foreign countries to get accreditation. So basically, that is what we've started to, and we want to see it as a West African thing. So it's represents basically in both Anglophone and Francophone West Africa. And I think that's a very good thing that has been started by our young president, and he's a very, very dynamic person. And I think we must all give kudos to him for having that idea and coming up with this whole initiative
and the drive that we all have. Right, thank you. I mean, it tells you how honored we are to have a special guest in this house today. Right, so back to Atiwa. We are looking at the dangers and the opportunities and the possible dangers of the Atiwa forest. But first of all, I mean, Atiwa is a reserve forest, if I'm right, is a reserve forest, and we're looking at a deposit of particularly bauxite, and we now intend getting in there to start mining. We've been mining gold for God knows how long. I mean, from records back in the 16th centuries, we're still mining, but officially we'll say about 100+ years when Anglo Gold Ashanti which used to be that Ashanti Gold had actually started mining. So officially, I'll take the 100 years. We've been mining for 100 years, and we've seen some of the challenges and the environmental challenges and all that. And gold is one of the highest ornaments that you can ever actually think of. And then now we come back and say, bauxite, yeah, patches of bauxite, because I grew up in the Western region area. So bauxite, I've seen it before. And now we want to go into Atiwa to talk about bauxite, really. I mean, how safe are we? And that's how I want to start it. How safe are we when it comes to getting into a reserve forest that has beautiful, I mean, water source that runs through many, many, many places. And then we want to get in there. Are there any?
A reserve forest. I want to liken mining to marriage. A reserve forest, a reserve lady. And it's how you treat the lady that makes the marriage successful or ends up into divorce. So if you take that lady, which is, I think, the oldest business in this world is marriage. So if you take that forest as a virgin lady, as a virgin, then let's try to analyze what you would have done in your marriage to make it a successful marriage.
Okay.
If you take forest, whenever I speak, I'll try to come back to marriage.
Okay.
Mining basically is a way of getting people with an interest in tilling or getting something out of the ground successfully, profitably, economically, and environmentally friendly.
Right.
While also meeting, getting the social license that is required for us to...
Social license.
Social license.
Right.
It is very important. So if you take Atiwa's forest, there's trees, fauna, and we also have to look at the animals that...
That's right, the species
that are in the forest. In other areas, what you really do is you go and take a census and account for it, because you're not taking running down the whole forest. You basically will take part of the forest and obviously make sure the other area is available for them to have a habitat.
But definitely you'll be creating trails in there, so probably all those ones will be affected. So
if you look at mining, what we really do, we really take up all these things, calculate them, and say there are certain areas that are no-go areas at all, because we want to create that environmental friendliness. We want to create an area for the species to also develop.
Because it's their natural habitat.
It's a natural habitat. So we create that. I mean, if you look at, for instance, there is a place, Gag, for instance, Idraprim.
Oh, okay.
They have the forest there, and you do not hunt even in the forest. Nobody enters that area. We've created it. Sacred area. These are things that we have the capability of doing as a mining industry. So going into Atiwa does not mean everything will be destroyed. It means we will do our best and anything reasonably possible to make sure that we maintain the virginity of the forest.
Right.
Where we have to take something out of the forest, we will put in place the systems and structures that will make us take things properly, so that at least we can meet the environmental and social license of the area.
Okay.
And at the moment, whatever we do, this is where God has given us the bauxite. Good bauxite that we would have to mine. And large quantities. So obviously, it was not placed there just to sit there. And God has given us also wisdom and technology that we can also use in order to exploit this bauxite. So using these two ideas that we have, the mining industry will obviously go in properly to make sure we mine this safely and profitably. And to do these things, the mining community would have to do a feasibility study. In doing a feasibility study, it's not just the technical aspect that it's done. We take the risk and assessment of the environment, the risk assessment of the society. We take the risk assessment of technology that will be used in order to meet these two earlier factors. Then we look at the viability of the project in terms of finance.
Okay.
If it is good, and we think we can go in and mine while meeting the dictates of all the stakeholders, then we mine. If we do not meet the details of the stakeholders, we make a presentation to them and say, these are your details. This is what it's going to cost us. Do you still want us to mine? If you say no, or you come back and say, can you give us a better way? Then we go back to the table and rethink. For instance, I know Rio Tinto in Guinea gave out Semando, one of the big iron projects. It's 66% iron, very good project. They were 6%. Wow. They were really trying to sell it to Chinaco, but they stopped. The idea was, Guinea says you must only export your iron through our ports, not through any other port, which means they would have to be forced to put in a 650-kilometer rail network from their source to the port.
Okay.
And that's going to cost them $23 billion.
And they were not ready to do
dollars. Now they are looking back at it again, because that is what we call the systems that are in place. Mining would not just go there and mine anything. Exactly when we say mining the forest, I'll tell you something. I mean, there was a forest at Mampong. Mampong was Dinsha Mampong. Oh,
because when you said it, I was looking at Mampong here.
Dinsha Mampong. Yeah.
Okay.
And in 1998, we were battling to get forestry permission to mine in that forest.
Okay.
We are not giving forestry permission. Today, without the permission, the forest doesn't exist because Galamsey has basically torn it apart, and we cannot even handle it. But if we had taken the decision at that time to give it to a more responsible
as
a concession, we could have done that and restored the forest. So these are the sort of things that we have to look at. As a country, mining will have to go on. We need responsible people to do it. And that's why the government, knowing that the challenges it has at the moment, what you call dangers, I call it challenges.
Okay.
The challenges we have in mining at Atiwa will be, what capacity has government got to help monitor what we say we're going to do?
I was going to get there, but you seem to know, reading my mind. I'm sure out of the conversation we had before we came on set, you realized that I was going to go there. One of the things I want to do is that, I mean, we've mined several years in this country, and I use gold as an example, and other minerals, I mean manganese as well. And yet, the state institutions that are supposed to do the monitoring and evaluation, really, have they lived up to expectation? So why do we want to go in there and start this? That's my major concern.
Okay, but like there are two ways you can look at this. The state institutions, it's a state institution. Do they have the resources to monitor the rich mining companies? So, yes, they may have the capabilities, but do they have the resources?
That's another question. Yeah.
Even without the resources, are they proactive enough to use the resources of the companies to serve their purpose? That's another thing, because these are things that you have to look at, and it comes from leadership, the way they want to handle everything. But I believe that in the summary, I think they have done their best, because if you look at the accident rates that we had in the past, it has really been now to a minimal, and that even they can even predict accidents. State institutions can now predict accidents, like the Minerals Commission. The Inspectorate Department can predict an accident based upon the statistics that they have.
Right.
And so now it's big data, you see, so they can basically mine the data and predict.
Right.
So they're doing their best. But we know they have their shortcomings. The mines have increased. The very good people basically are attracted by the mines, because it's money, they have the capacity to pay.
So they can easily
people go in there rather than stay with the state institutions.
Right.
So all these are things that really are happening. It's not just money you give them, it's the resources, experience, exposure, and the willingness of people in the state institutions to really drive the industry.
Right.
And these are the things that you're looking at. So in having all these problems and all these shortcomings, the government then says, I would not put bauxite solely in the hands of Minerals Commission.
Right.
I will take it out and get a Ghana Integrated Aluminium Development Corporation,
right,
which then will be the whole area to manage and provide the needed attention for the bauxite.
So this is a specific...
It's a specific area. So basically, the government has done one thing in the right direction, getting it so that at least we don't overburden the current capacity we have in the Minerals Commission and the EPA.
Because already they are overburdened.
Exactly.
So if you add this to it, so this particular one...
It's set aside. And if you look, I call it GUIDEC. GUIDEC basically for now is doing a lot of social consultations with chiefs, communities, opinion leaders, and going all over the place to make sure they get the social license right. In the same vein, they are also dealing with all the investors and look at...
if you talk about social license, to somebody who's watching, how would they get the social? Because somebody might think that providing us with the schools and giving us a little bit of handouts.
Social license is beyond that. It's not just providing them the schools. Schools are basically things that you do as a community investment. But social license is getting the people to buy into your idea to provide them with the needed change in lifestyle. So that when it's a sort of an agreement.
Right.
Because you come to them, you tell them what you're going to do. You tell them what the benefits that's going to accrue to them.
Yeah.
And then they buy into it and support you in any way so that you can get a peaceful means of environment to work.
Right. Okay.
And that's the social license.
Right. Okay. So
if you don't get that happening, for instance, Obuasi some years ago had to close down because they lacked the social license, because the society and the company were at loggerheads.
Okay.
And that's it. Now it's gone down. So they've gone in there and appealed to the society, and they have accepted them back.
Right.
That is what you need. Because without social license, I'm telling you, no matter how good and profitable your financials are, no matter how good you're going to do things, people will not get you to mine. And that is the new way of mining.
Okay.
Is to make sure the community is on your side.
All right.
It's not just the money, it's your community on the side.
There's a community on the side, yes. And they would have to be satisfied with what is going on.
Exactly.
And they know that they're also going to benefit, because the people are also going to get some employment and all kinds of things.
Exactly.
Even if it's not technical, there's some casual labor that you would always require. So somebody's always going to benefit from that. And once they're satisfied with that, it means that you have that environment to work peacefully.
Yeah.
So thank you for that explanation. So, yeah.
So getting back to GUIDEC. GUIDEC now is basically going out there to make sure that the society accepts us to mine bauxite. And bauxite, for instance, as you saw in Valley in Brazil, what happened there when there was a dam break?
The spillage.
The spillage. It has red mud. That is what it's associated with bauxite.
Okay.
So you need to contain that, and people will have to understand what it does. So if red mud gets into your water body, straight away it's contaminated. Yeah. So the mining entities who are coming in are taking all those things into consideration to make sure that these water bodies are protected. If where we think is going to impact on that water body, we have to find a means of producing alternative means of water. That's number one.
Okay.
And then also preventing that water body from getting out into other streams.
Right.
And those are because...
so you have to divert the water.
You may have to divert the water. You may have to build dams that will contain the water and recycle the water.
Okay.
Because, I mean, one of the things we did in one of the mines I know in Ghana, for instance, Ashanti Goldfields in the past, and now Anglo Gold Ashanti, was zero effluents. That means you do not discharge anything which was bad into the environment.
Okay.
So we were recycling, so we had everything good, zero effluents. And the water that was good was reused
by the company.
By the company.
By the mining company.
By the mining company.
Right.
So that's zero effluents.
So
these are the sort of things that we'll have to take into consideration. And these things can only be done by investors in the mining companies.
Right.
Governments or the country or government representatives would have to put in place proactive policies that would challenge us to rethink the way we do things and monitor to make sure that those policies are in place. And I tell you, EPA is doing well in that regard. Minerals Commission is doing well in that regard. Right. And there's a technical team that has been formed between EPA, Minerals Commission, Lands Commission, Forestry Commission, and GUIDEC, which is basically used to make sure that whatever we do, we can analyze the feasibility reports that come in selecting the people that will come and do the mining to make sure that we do not get shortchanged.
Right.
So I think every process is in place. Right. There are challenges. The challenges will be how do we get the government establishments to help. And that will come straight from technology transfer. We need now to have identified people to go out there, training them now, so that because mining bauxite is not just a 1 year thing. Right. It takes about 5 years, maybe. I mean, there's a company somewhere in Russia that was trying to mine in. I've just forgotten. Was trying to mine somewhere.
But in Ghana.
Not in Ghana.
No, okay.
10 years.
Okay.
They had to do a lot of work for 10 years.
Just like the oil companies.
Yes.
You have the block, but then.
But you can't just mine. You have to do your feasibility and do all your analysis before. So now we have just started. It's going to take 5 years before we can see maybe something happening. I mean, to bring in
the equipment.
Mining is straightforward. At this stage, it's mineral economics. It's not just mining. At this stage, what we're doing is mineral economics to make sure the economics are right for mining. And then the next stage, I mean, the mining aspect comes in at the tail end. That is when we'll start talking about these major issues, challenges. But then it's all taken up at the preparatory stage with the mineral economics, where we have to put in everything that we want to do, making sure all the policies are in place. Right. Where we think we foresee a problem, policy will have to be put in place to make sure we curtail that problem. Okay. And these things are all going on. And to get the smelter in place here, it's not easy. A smelter is over $1 billion.
We used to have Valco.
Yes.
That's similar to what they were doing.
That's Valco. Valco has a similar thing. So these are all things that it's quite expensive. We have a smelter at Valco. And if you're going to do bauxite, don't forget that it's going to help benefit everybody because the railway lines were going to be created. The salt industry will then have to spring up because you need salt in there. Power. It's a key thing in terms of bauxite.
Hold on at power and let me bring you back. I mean, in the industry of oil, salt is required. We have salt. I mean, I won't go too far. The Songo Lagoon is there. We have salt. But yes, still we're importing salt from Brazil.
Cost. Because our salt industry is not really structured and set up properly to meet the demands of the oil industry. If you need, for instance, if you need on a daily basis, you need 100,000 tons of salt. Do you have the capacity? No.
So capacity becomes a challenge.
So it is one of the things that the GUIDEC is looking at is what is the capacity? What capacity do we have in terms of salt?
Right.
How do we develop the salt capacity? Do we have the resources? Yes. Right. Who can supply us? Can we bring in people, or is it going to be a local content thing? Yes. Then we have to
get the capacity. A percentage of local content. So maybe we're getting 50% here, and then we'll import
the rest. So just to augment it, because it's important. All these things are areas that the corporation will be looking at to make sure that we get all the chips in place before we go into the big haul. And we need a strong technological transfer system where people now from the universities will be taken out to go out there and understand what we have to do in terms of the smeltering, in terms of mining, in terms of treating, and in terms of evaluating even bauxite. I mean, in Ghana, we have a lot of evaluers, geologists. Okay. They are good at signing. They are qualified to sign maybe on gold.
Okay.
This area is different.
The bauxite is different. Gold. So we've been doing gold for a while, but bauxite...
Yeah, bauxite is different. Right. So we need to build the capacity for people to sign off on bauxite resources and all these things. These are things that we have to do.
I mean, with the oil, I'll always link it to another, resource, because it took us by surprise when the oil industry started booming. So it looks as if everybody was coming from outside. For even manual jobs, we were getting people from outside. The same way, I mean, we've been talking about bauxite. Whether we like it or not, eventually it would happen. But yet, are we putting all those in place? But that's a question that will be asked later on, unless otherwise...
That's why I keep on saying technology transfer, technology transfer. It is the need and how we drive technology transfer that will make things work.
What? Okay.
Because at the time, bauxite now, oil now is trying to do a lot in terms of technology transfer. You find out that now you have people coming up from the various institutions coming up into the oil industry, coming up oil space, and coming up in terms of their positions.
Right.
But it's not just that the positions. For instance, in oil, you need welding. Welding is key, and you need to get expert welders. We did at that time. We didn't have that in Ghana. Now we are able to train up to the first level. We have to train to the first, second, and third level so that they can be on their own. And all this comes with technology transfer.
Right.
So likewise with the bauxite, we need technology transfer. If you look at China, China over the years went to America, went to Europe, and had technology transfer. And when the China became the manufacturing base of the world, people were still being trained. So now China can stand on their own. And so there was a systematic strategic effort to get China to be where it is. What we need as a challenge, and has to be monitored properly by the government's organizations, is how we measure technology transfer. And whether we are able to maintain the people in the country. Because don't forget, if you move around West Africa, everywhere you go, it's Ghanaians that are basically manning all the technical aspects in all the mining areas. So we need them to be able to stay in Ghana. And that comes back to how we treat all these things. But so in terms of challenges, I don't think the mining companies will have much challenge in mining.
Right.
The challenge will be on the part of government to really up their game to supervise and monitor the mining companies to meet that's where you'll be crossing your fingers and hoping that we'll be able to do that. And at that point, we need honest and patriotic Ghanaians who, because I mean, don't forget, I mean, I say this everywhere. If I am a rich man and I want a shortcut, I give you something you cannot refuse. But if you're an honest man, you look beyond what I'm giving you and say, I might do this better, and in the long run, I'll get 3 times what you're giving me. And so we need honesty. And that's what I think the challenge is going to be.
Honesty.
Honesty.
From the conversation we're having, it tells me that it has arrived. We will definitely go into the Atiwa Forest and mine from where you're coming from. We have to. I mean, it's not, we need it. Tell me, in Ghana, what are we really exporting, manufacturing? Nothing. Nothing. We basically, it's now that we are trying to turn everything around. And so when I hear people talk about the dollar going up and down, I just say, what are you sending there out there in exchange? We're importing everything. So this is the time that we're going to have something coming in. We have to mine and make sure that we add value to the bauxite here. And if we can do that, we will move from just getting maybe $10 to about maybe $300. Right. And that is the sort of thing that we But will the person who's watching us, who's been asking this question over and over, that gold, diamond, been with us, and like I said from the answer in my preamble, that over 100 years, and yet we can't point to anything. You go to Obuasi, the town virtually is dead, and streets and everything, because they thought that with the gold, something would have pumped in, compared to our competitors, South Africa. And it looks good. And they mine, and you go to the mining community, is awesome, but you come to Ghana, it's the opposite. So why would we now want to think that the bauxite would come and save us? It's not bauxite just come to save us. I mean, I did a presentation some time ago, and I looked at the curve
of gold price with GDP. We're moving in tandem. And
gold and
the GDP, we're moving in tandem.
Right.
And I said that we are too much hooked onto gold, so that if anything happens to the gold price, we are at risk.
We did.
And so with bauxite coming in, it gives us we diversify, and I think it's good.
Didn't we think the same way when oil was coming in? All right, go ahead.
I'm talking, we thought the same way, but you see, even with oil, it's now bumping up our GDP.
Okay.
What I'm saying now is, we are looking at a multifaceted approach to the economy,
right?
Which is gold, oil, bauxite, and maybe iron in the future. These base metals which have not been developed much.
Right. Okay.
So if you can get these ones coming in, we know that we just not hooked onto gold. And now to answer your question about why we not benefited from gold,
right?
It's policy. It's the way we are thinking in the past. It was the way we thought that everything are buying there. So even the Ghanaian himself was not prepared to sort of accept and do things differently so that the gold would come in. He was prepared to take the gold and smuggle it. But now, and this was my appeal to the media, is for us to continually go out there and let people understand that there's nothing like buying, we are buying. So that if we can keep whatever we take and then add value to it in the country benefits, and we within the country also benefit. But if we don't,
and we're taking it out.
We're taking it out.
The mining companies are taking it out.
Then they'll take it out. They benefit out there and we don't benefit. Obviously, the mining company comes in here with his investment. He wants to repatriate his investment. Yeah. It is up to us to put the systems in place that encourages him or her to invest in the country. And that means you need security, you need peace, you need financial security, you need economic security. And if these things are in place in the country, I believe that obviously everybody wants to keep their money here, because this way they pay out and keep their money here. If you look out there, most people like to even live in Ghana if they have the chance. They want to have their resources in Ghana. If the economy improves, they will keep their money here.
In the Ghanaian economy.
In the Ghanaian economy.
There's a question that's running through my mind, and I'd like to ask you, with all the species and the lifestyle, the life itself in the forest, from where you're coming from, can we guarantee that when the mining goes on, the life will still exist in the forest, the way we do our things? My fear is our lifestyle. We can't segregate waste as a nation. It rains 2 minutes and there's flood. Attempts has been made over and over. The capital of the same country, the seat of government is in the capital. It rains for 2 minutes and people are dying. And we've been told that this is what we're going to do in the Atiwa forest to save the species, the trees, the birds, the fauna. Why would I believe that?
Okay, I'll tell you something. If you've ever visited a mining company, what you see out here is very different than what you see in a mining environment.
It's a different world?
It's a different world. Talking to somebody says, we live in an enclave. It's a different world. The type of environmental consciousness, sanitary consciousness, is, I would say, almost about 99%.
Right.
And if you compare that to what we have outside the country, outside that enclave, it's different. So I always say something that if people will try to go to the mining companies and say, for instance, let's say Takwa, we have 3 mining towns, mining companies there. We have bauxite, we have gold fields, we have Anglo Gold Ashanti. And say the Takwa Municipal Assembly goes to them and says, guys, we want you to extend your environmental principles into our town. And therefore, we go out there and conscientize our people that these guys are coming in. And you'll be surprised that the people who live in Takwa go to the mine and behave differently. When they come out, they behave differently. If you are able to extend that, Takwa in itself becomes a showcase for people to see what the mining companies can do for a town. Rather than to ask, well, just get me a road or that. No. Let's extend all those things right into the various towns and let us see what happens.
Okay.
And once you do that, it becomes a showcase. So what we see out there is different. And so what we're talking about now, that we have flats in Accra, it's not going to happen in Atiwa, because the mining companies have proved over and over again that we are an enclave that do things differently. It's up to us as Ghanaians to go out there, visit the place, learn and bring it, transfer it. I mean, when I talk about technology transfer, we don't need to go outside. Just move from here to a mining company, get all the DCs to visit mining companies, see what is done there, and want to and challenge them to bring it into their communities.
Is it about, you and I talked about leadership offset, and not necessarily heads of institutions or organizations, but sectorial heads and departmental heads all have
supervisory,
yes. Yeah. Yes. You think that's because once you said this, I look at the picture when I visited Takwa some time back, and I was in Tamso, but we went, even their clubhouses, how they manage it, they integrate with the locals, but yes, so the junior staff house, senior staff house, and the safety. I mean, all vehicles moving within the mining area had their amber lights on, daytime and everything. And so, is that what you're saying, that it could be done?
It will be done, but it's up to us to go out there and leverage it as Ghanaians who are outside that enclave to say, can you extend that to our area? And then conscientize our people to accept that, because they go there and they behave that way. So we need the leadership at that level, be it assemblymen, be it homes. If every home, anybody who works in the mine brings that sort of leadership into their home, I think there'll be a change. So
back to Atiwa. I mean, from the conversation, you're telling us that we shouldn't be worried, we shouldn't be afraid of anything.
Mining, I told you, it's a marriage. And we want to keep that woman so beautiful, homely, and that makes the house a place, makes it a home. So mining is a right person, is a right industry to get married to. And I don't think it's going to be a problem. But
what has actually necessitated some of the challenges and the community sometimes going against the mining companies? We hear them, and then they try and solve the problems. I mean, recently we're all hearing what's going. Yes.
It's again, I come out with my 4 steps. But the last step is communication. I mean, I believe that in anything that you do, there are 4 things I call the Pamiko principles. You have to be disciplined.
Right.
You have to be focused on what you're doing. Smart at work. Smart work. And then the last thing is communication.
Right.
Effective communication.
Effective communication.
If you do not communicate what you're going to do, no matter how good it is, the person will not understand you, and therefore, when you give him the chance to perceive otherwise. And that's what has basically caused most of these problems. For instance, in the mining community, there's a mining guy who drives his car up and down the road. He has his road up in his air conditioned, and he just zooms up past the people. I mean, perception. But if there's that interaction where once in a while you invite them into the mine, they see what you do and why we are doing those and the impact it has for them, then the people begin to understand why maybe you're driving even in a closed vehicle. It's not just because you don't want to even breathe their air, but maybe it's for a different reason. So it's communication. The way we communicate to our stakeholders is a key point, and that's what makes people raise the alarm. For instance, I look at what happened at Awaso. I do not have all the details, but coming from afar, I'm saying these guys wanted something. You say you cannot give it. How often were you communicating? Did you wait for them to always ask, or when they call you, you're not coming? You wait and just brush them off. It's a way you communicate. You engage them continuously. Even when you cannot do it continuously, you have to engage them. So they know that there's something. Where you can do something, give out a bit. And these are the sort of things that you do to engage and get the social license. If you breach it, it takes a long time to build the trust again. So again, I'm saying why these things happen is the way we communicate. It's not just verbal communication, the way we even move around, We act, and we must act in a way that is reasonable, that people will not feel very bad that you are also working in the mining environment. That's the key thing.
Peter, before I ask you my final question, I mean, you've actually made me feel comfortable, and I'm taking this from you, and I'm sure you can guarantee that.
I would guarantee it.
You would guarantee that. So on that note, let me ask you, is there anything that I left out that you think that it will be necessary to let my viewers know when it comes to Atiwa, that the advantages far outweigh the disadvantage? And so you've guaranteed it, and so I'll hold you on that.
Yeah,
yes.
Of course. It's what I think we have to do. It's for social groups to really hold government agencies. And most often, the mistake we make, we hold government. No, government agencies. Don't just go, I want the president to do this. No, I want the Minerals Commission. I want GIDEC. I want EPA. Hold them accountable, because they are being paid by our taxpayers' money to work for us. If we go and hold them accountable, we prepare minutes or proposals as to what we want. Where necessary, we go to court and bring them to court. In that case, we develop our legal framework, we develop our industries, and then we get people to understand what we are doing better. And I think that's the way we have to move in terms of getting the rule of law working in our country.
Peter,
thank you.
I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Isol.
And I think that on this note, after you have left, I'll be looking towards the direction of the EP and the Minerals Commission also.
And GIDEC.
And GIDEC as well.
So they are responsible for that.
For that. Particularly for the bauxite.
Yeah.
But it's been a pleasure having you on this platform.
Thank you.
Thank you too. Right. We're not done yet, so let me. Well, you heard it, and we'll continue doing the follow-up with regards to GIDEP, EPA, and the Minerals Commission, and then we'll hear from them. But Peter has actually given us his assurance, and he says that we're safe. Right. I'll take a quick break, and Cecilia will be here after the break.